Okay, welcome everyone to this week's episode of What the Ref, everyone's favourite podcast about our wonderful research excellence framework. I'm James.
I'm Gemma.
And I'm Simon.
And today we'll talk about a number of topics, including the CKU guidance, the pause to the ref, and we'll be casting forward to the Festival of the Hidden Ref.
The pause to the ref. How much of it is going to be taken up with the pause to the ref?
Can we just say a pause in academic terms is called a no-cost extension? So
I want to actually kick off a bit today by saying that I am currently at RSECon, the Research Software Engineering Conference, where I was fortunate enough to give the keynote this morning. And I talked all about the hidden ref, and it was really well received. So it's really wonderful to get all of these people who actually were the ones I was originally working with and sort of led me to thinking about the hidden ref, to be feeding back to them about the stuff that they've done and how that's affecting research culture in general. It was a really
Any surprising questions, Simon?
There's some really good ones actually. So I mean, things like I was saying, we should have software, more software outputs being submitted to the ref, and then one person said, will that not make universities start to put in lots of software, this sort of fetishization of novelty that we get with papers, rather than looking for software that has been maintained and supported and grown bigger communities and got more important. And that was a really good point. And I think that's something, that point in general is something that we should really take into our guidance on NTOs whilst we're making it. It's not just about amassing more, as we tend to do with publications. It's about better quality.
Huh. Interesting.
should also mention that the Hidden Ref team was a panelist at last week's STI ENID conference here at the University of Bristol. It is the 29th annual STI ENID conference, which is an international network of science policy, research, measurement and evaluation experts. And I can say that it was a pretty fun experience to sit up there in front of the world's experts on how to evaluate different aspects of research evaluation and tell them about our project. We had a lot of really good questions, and more important, we had a lot of people from overseas really, really interested in what we're going to come up with, how we're going to do it, and more importantly, how to get involved. So Hidden Ref might go global, guys. Wouldn't that be exciting?
I don't know. The imposter syndrome was strong on that day because these were all assessment exercise experts, and I'm very much not an expert in that area. I'm more about the community building and things around the Hidden Ref. So I was bracing myself for some difficult questions.
Nah, we're not that type of people.
Yeah, that's literally what I was doing. That's a very interesting question. Talk to Gemma.
No, it's a great network, and we're very, very happy to have the Hidden Ref on board. So here's to more future exciting things with this international network.
So coming then. So any important news recently about the ref?
Oh yeah, there's that little thing that happened last week. James, do you remember what that is?
Something called a pause?
Ah, yes. So what do we think? Come on, what do we think? I mean, and then let's just precede this by saying this is all speculation because not many people know what's actually going on, and possibly nobody knows what actually is going on. There's just a lot of lobbying and a bit of a pause to think about it. So what do we think?
A pause first. I think I understand what Patrick Valance says when he says we have to do this right, and a pause is never a bad thing. However, if the pause was supposed to bring clarity over the ref to the HE sector, I think this pause has only created the opposite effect, and there's more confusion, more noise, etc. I have heard so many different things. I have heard that they're getting rid of the ref entirely. I've heard that they will sacrifice proportions of outputs to give to PCE. I've heard about the death of the PCE and going back to ref 2021. I've heard about a two-tier systems where some university will be assessed by some criteria and another group of universities will be assessed by another criteria. I think that I have a very clear message to Patrick Valance, if you can allow me, gentlemen, to do this. And this is
not confused on this, right?
Right. No, it's fine. And this is to quote a very important Harry Potter exercise, Albus Dumbledore, a very interesting professor in his own, when he said sometimes there's a choice between doing what is right and doing what is easy. And I would really like Patrick Valance is talking about REF as an audit framework only, to see it as a developmental framework to create the type of research sector we want in the future. It's very difficult, and PCE is perhaps a very important step in the right direction. And yes, there are some things that are difficult to measure, but that's not a reason in itself to not do it itself. I think my personal experience or personal opinion is that if you start sacrificing PCE for outputs, you are treating the research community a bit like battery hens, where it doesn't matter the environment in which you keep us as long as we keep producing more and more and more. It's not a secret what is problematic in research culture in HE sector here in the UK. This is a really important step towards correcting that and creating a better research future. That is the right thing to do.
So what do you? I mean, you're right. Okay, so it was amazing how like the news blew up about this pause, and that how quickly the research community is to don the end is nigh sandwich boards and start walking around the streets wailing, right? But a lot of the stuff I have seen is focused on the environment, no, the PCE, basically.
Yeah.
And it's going to be either it's going to be knocked down, and its percentage is going to be knocked down, or it's going to be radically changed. There's a little, and I've heard a lot of well, Patrick Vallance says, doesn't he? This hint, wonder what it's about, and I've got it here. We must make sure that we get it right. We must make sure that it does measure the things that we know we want to measure, and it doesn't get bound down by measuring things that don't actually impact on what we're trying to understand. Now, he doesn't say that's about the environment, but it's the kind of hints from the community I've heard is he might be talking about that. What do you think?
I think he's focusing on trying to understand the research sector without actually understanding the research sector. So he's trying to understand the research sector, but he doesn't see REF as a powerful tool for motivating change. And we know the research sector needs change. We know that there is a huge gender imbalance, especially at the higher levels of academia. We know that there are many different people that are involved in how research is operationalized at our universities. We know that, creating a culture where publication is the only, valuable output that can ever come from research, not only marginalizes a great deal of people who produce research, but not necessarily in research contracts, but also creates a two-tier system within universities about promotion and attainment. So we know all of these bad things, and I could go on and on with a list of things that is wrong with the research sector and research culture for particular things. And these are global. And, I think that the PCE statement was a really important signal saying, look, we're going to use this to make a positive change for the benefit of all taxpayers, all people in society, etc. To go back on it sets a dangerous precedent. If we return to a focus on outputs at the expense of PCE, what kind of signal does that make about how researchers are being treated in the HE sector? What sort of signal does that mean when we want to attract good researchers from overseas to come and work in the UK? I think it sets a dangerous precedent only to see it as an audit framework.
Yeah, I think it quite clearly says the environment is an unimportant part of the research, the research that is conducted. So
what I find interesting in a way is kind of the timing of this. So if we think about it, there's been a period maybe of the last sort of, let's say 9 months or so, where there's been a lot of like contentious things happening in and around the ref. So we've had, slightly aside from what goes on this podcast, we've had a slightly contentious set of consultations around open access. We've had a slightly contentious period around the sort of the CKU benchmarking exercise. No, sorry, not the CKU, the PCE benchmarking stuff, and doing some pilots of that. We then had some CKU guidance which came out, which we'll talk about in a minute, which sort of immediately raised questions, which is not to criticize REF, but immediately people went, oh, what does that mean? Or what does that mean? And I get the sense that I feel like this is probably connected to kind of a complexity that's built up around this, where there's probably, the statement, we must make sure it does measure the things we know we want to measure, does imply both that there are 3 things that REF is supposed to be about in terms of quality, and that there are also some things hidden beneath that, which maybe also people kind of know they want to measure. And maybe we've just got to a point where there's just so much complexity and sort of people in policy positions been drawn into so many weeds. They've gone, wait a minute, like, do we need to pause? Do we need to step back? Do we need to reflect? Do we need to stop? Because it has been a kind of rolling train of complexity for a little while. And again, that's not to kind of criticize REF people. It's more just as more things have been trying to be fed in to quite rightly improve the equity of the process, it has created long, complex documents, which us three sit there looking at and going, "Oh, what does that wording mean?" And then emailing people asking them and say, like, "Hey, can you clarify that?" And then they clarify it within a few days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, can I just say that when I heard the news, the first thing I thought about, the first thing where my concern went was not the HE research sector, but really to the people at Research England who are behind the ref, who, through this project we've got to know, and we know that they are an incredibly motivated bunch of people. And my heart went out to them going, oh my goodness, you must have the most terrible summer ever. And, they are motivated by trying to make research better. So this kind of pause is a good thing if it is a pause and a chance to reflect. But if it's a pause ahead of an inevitable, radical change to the detriment of, UK research, but also to the research, the PCE statement, which is an important part of improving the research sector, then I really think these people who have put a huge amount of effort and really do believe in what they're doing really need to, we need to think about their well-being and how painful this is for them. In addition, I was thinking about all the people who put REF together at the universities. There are jobs involved here. And I was thinking, my goodness, here they are trying to answer to some very, very loud voices about what does this mean for me and how do we measure that, etc. And that's just only increased for them right now. And not only that, they're also thinking about their own positionality.
So I think that's the one. That's the group that I was really thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I work with a number of ref managers where we talk directly, but I'm not allowed to talk about what we talk about. I in a forum like this, and that gives you a brilliant insight into how things are working. And they're really trying to put into place what the ref wants them to put into place. And they're stuck between the ref with this great idea about how it wants to change things and to measure research culture as well as understanding research excellence, and the universities, which understandably are saying, well, you kind of want to, we don't want to affect our results, and we certainly don't want to spend more resources on this assessment than is necessary to get the output that we want. So they're these translators between those two worlds. And every single time you come in and go, you know what? PC is now going to be 20%, not 25%. And, we're going to add a new thing on, or we're going to stop it. Or, one of the big pushbacks, and this is in Research Professional today, I think, was, 3-month pause, but no change in the actual deadlines. So you don't know what's going on for an extra 3 months, and you've got 3 months and you've got no sort of extension. So I think they're going to have a really hard job doing this.
The other thing that I'm concerned about is the rumors, the unsubstantiated rumors that this pause was motivated by some very loud voices from a specific group of, Russell Group universities.
Who could that be?
Oh, I wonder. I think we're all, we could probably choose them and we'd probably get at least a 60% hit rate. Basically.
We are all based at Russell Group University.
We're all based in Russell Group universities.
We've got mortgages to think about.
But the thing is that there's this idea, right, is that if you've got Russell Group universities saying we need to think about the PCE statement, that are saying, oh, because we don't know what we're measuring, etc. But the motivation behind it is they're scared that they're going to perform badly. And that's a really big motivation, especially in the HE sector at the moment. And so that kind of makes me think that if you've got very powerful people running scared, then that's a reason to have it, more so than any other rationale that anyone can come up with. Because if you're going to put so much energy into fighting against the existence of the PCE statement, rather than focusing your energy on making your research culture within your institution better, then I really have to question, the leadership types and the motivations here and the institutions. Because again, what we're seeing in the E-Type project is the problem is not the ref itself. It's how institutions operationalize the rules for their own benefit. And if you're misplacing your energies on fighting against PCE rather than, improving research culture, then what does that mean for the entire HE research sector?
And that is indeed if the speculation, if all the speculation is true and it's about the PCE. So do you think we should bring this to an end because we're just adding more speculation?
Can I add one more point?
Yeah.
Please, James.
I think it's also worth adding that we're recording this on the day where two largest universities in the UK have just proposed they're going to merge. And we did end of the last podcast. Maybe it was the end. I can't remember. Some point in the last podcast, we talked a little about the wider kind of landscape. And that's got to be a factor here as well, right? Like, I know we're all speculating, but we all know that this year's complex for a lot of universities. And I'm sure, yes, pausing with no extension of the deadline, potentially if the ref's going to happen in its current form, is a problem for institutions, but so is continuing to place burdens on institutions to continue to consult over complex matters at a time when a lot of them are looking at real bottom line problems as opposed to, yeah.
But in
And I think,
respect to that, fixing the ref, whatever that means, or changing the ref is not going to fix the problems that HE is facing at the moment.
no,
And ironically, ref is not the problem that HE is facing at the moment, nor is it cause of the problems. The cause is how universities have made certain financial decisions and the wider political context in which universities find themselves being asked to operate in. And I won't go into the number of different challenges they find, but in those main challenges, the ref is not a major cause of the problems or the financial difficulties of universities. So again, I'm starting thinking, in order to fix the HE sector in the UK, are they perhaps choosing what is easy but not is right?
It's back to your Dumbledore quote there, right,
I love
there.
Dumbledore. He's awesome.
So I say in my keynote this morning, I did say, because these are research software engineers, they're not all up to speed on what the ref is about. And I said, in the last ref, there was 157 universities were involved. In the next ref in 2029, I don't know how many universities will be involved, maybe 3. And then everybody sort of got that joke, as in the sector is not doing well at the moment. So let's hope it's not 3. But I think yes, there are big changes happening around all the university sector as a whole at the same time as we're trying to get this ref through, which makes it extra complicated.
Can I just add one final thing? And this is relation to the hidden ref and the ETI project, is the fact that if they do sacrifice PCE for an increase in the overall proportion of outputs, then that makes our job here at the hidden ref even more important, to make sure that a bigger proportion of non-traditional outputs are represented in the outputs, so that the idea of changing research culture, especially as it relates to how non-traditionally submitted outputs are assessed, isn't dependent only on one criterion, but its value is recognized across all of them. So
that's
silver
nice.
lining.
it's a nice segue.
Yeah.
You've segued
Thanks.
into our next topic.
I thought you'd like that.
It's almost like we have some kind of running order.
Are we going to talk about the changes to the CKU guidance and what happened over the summer, really, because we had that pause and there were some interesting things?
Simon, could you remind everyone what CKU actually means?
No. This is the contribution to knowledge and understanding. It's the outputs part of the ref. And I think it was in episode 4 we talked about the fact that we were really happy with the Hidden Ref campaign when we saw that they were changing the guidance so that all staff members who are involved in the research could contribute outputs, not just people on academic contracts. And then the guidance came out about the CKU, and there was this whole sort of debate going on about actually who's involved and who's not involved. And the problem was the guidance kind of made it a bit fuzzy about how you define who should be submitting outputs and who should not. And we did some pushbacks, we did some sort of trying to collect some information, and then Kelly Vere did an absolutely wonderful blog post. So Kelly Vere is the director of the Technician Commitment and the UK ITSS, and that was published on the REF website, where they sort of clarified that yes, actually people like technicians, research software engineers, research librarians, all of these other hidden roles, they do want outputs from them to be submitted to the next REF in 2029. I was quite happy with that.
But they don't have to. And also that remains important. I think one of the cornerstones of our campaign does remain that we don't want to force all of those hidden roles into the ref structure if they don't want to. But yeah, it's a super positive thing.
Again, though, we need to focus on, the rules allow this, and the ref does not allows this. But the problem with the refs that everyone talks about is perhaps focused and should be focused on how institutions apply those rules. And so the majority of our campaign is going to be focused on, convincing those higher education institutions that these are valuable and risk-free types of submissions to put in the CKU. And this is an uphill battle and something that's very difficult because, again, we know that, universities are conservative beings. They are conservative organizations, and they are unlikely to break the status quo unless there is a tangible benefit associated with them, which is, again, why, the whole focus of REF 2029 on PCE and research culture is so vitally important.
It's always the same, isn't it? Step 1 is get the guidance right. Step 2 is get people to follow the guidance. And that is by far the more difficult thing to do. In software engineering, we have this thing called "Build it and they will come," which is weirdly a line from Field of Dreams, which is a
Field
game.
of Dreams, yes.
Yeah. I don't know why this happened, but it's in the culture, and it's this idea that you can build a bit of software and put it up there, and people will just, because it's useful and really good, people will just suddenly materialize and start using it. And it's exactly the same concept with the ref guidance. You can make the changes, you can say the right things in the guidance, but getting people to follow it, well, that's entirely different.
Yeah.
And that takes us on to the ref panels, I guess, because they also have to follow the guidance.
They have to, not only that, but they have to develop their own guidance in vivo as well. And so this is why who gets put onto the panel, who gets selected to be on the panel, is really important. So, there's an idea that it's expert-led peer review. So it's done by experts who have enough understanding and expertise in which to assess each individual output, each PCE statement, as well as impact case studies. And so that's a huge amount of expertise you need in the panel. How many panelists are we thinking about, Simon, at the moment? How many were appointed?
So I've been trying to do this in the background whilst running around at this conference, but I think it's 779 panelists over all the main panels and the sub panels.
It's a huge amount of people who have, let's be serious, volunteered their time. Well, not volunteered, they will get compensated for it, but in terms of time, that's a huge amount of time that you're putting in to do it, and they have accepted the burden on in some way or form by virtue of just applying, and so I think we should be really thankful to evaluators. I've studied evaluators in the ref before, and I know they are an amazing group of people, so all the best of luck to them, especially since this pause has been announced and there's more confusion. But you were saying,
and the trust people have, like ultimately in the exercise comes down to those people, right? That's not an individual level; it just comes down to the fact that we trust them as experts in our fields to say what is good. And we did have at least one individual today claim that maybe the ref could be done by AI, thanks to the pause. And no, we do need people involved in this process. Otherwise, we're not going to be trusted it.
Yeah, I don't think I trust a computer to tell me,
Well, you don't trust a computer to tell you anything,
no.
I'm not sure, but
yeah, if only then, because oh my goodness, where are the ref haters going to blame if it's all done by a computer?
Well, we'll get ChatGPT to start sort of bad mouthing people in the comment section and research. It could be, the entire thing could be run by AI. We'll get the AI to do the research, to assess the research, to criticize the publications about that research, and we can all just we can all go to the beach or something.
And allocate the funding.
And allocate the funding too. The other thing about the panels that I really want to bring in that I think is an interesting change as well is that, and another abbreviation, RDAP, so that's the Research Diversity Advisory Panel, which is this group of people who sits across all of the panels and the main sub-panels. What they're doing is they've taken people from RDAP and they've embedded them in the main panels, of which there are 4. I can never remember what they are, A, B, C, and D.
So they're A, B, C, and D. Yeah, they don't have names.
E's humanities, A's
medical sciences,
and B is physical sciences, isn't it?
Physical sciences and chemical sciences.
I can't remember what they are. There you are. But so now there is an advocate for research diversity, so diversity of outputs, being sat on each of the main panels, not in the sub panels because that would be impossible because there's so many of them. But it's a step in the right direction, I think.
It's a big job for any individual. And we wish them all the best and look forward to working with them as we, create the evidence to back up whatever they say on their panels. So, yeah.
Our email address is at the end of this podcast. Get in touch.
James, you've been quiet. Anything else to say for this episode?
We've got a festival coming up in less than a month.
You serious? We've got a festival? Who thought about it?
And because it's happening in the middle of the ref pause, I'm sure it will be a hotspot for ref rumors. So those who've got tickets, because it is sold out, those who've got tickets, get ready for all that rumor milling. We've sold out the Hidden Ref Festival, Hidden Ref, which is in Birmingham early next month. It's going to be great. But it hasn't been launched yet, but we will have some kind of option to follow along on day 2. Which is the more kind of talks orientated day where we'll have we have like 15 lightning talks. Wow. Huge amounts of people got in touch saying they want to give lightning talks around various aspects of research culture, hidden roles, non-traditional outputs, work going on at HEIs, work going on in kind of sub parts of the sector kind of bodies. So that's really nice. We got some celebrations of past Hidden Ref winners to tell their stories, which I think is lovely, and that will feed forward, of course, to the next running of the Hidden Ref competition, which is great. And we'll have a wonderful panel at the end where we've got some ref panelists, well, previous ref panelists actually, research managers, people doing kind of NTO work at higher education institutions, and sort of groups that are really committed to advancing research assessment kind of coming along and giving their views on this area. So that day should be great. And like I said, there'll be some tickets appearing soon to join the live stream on the day. And day one is going to be super interactive, right? Workshops around developing those rubrics and metrics of assess diverse outputs, building on the work we've talked about in previous podcasts about running non-traditional output or non-traditionally submitted output workshops, which you guys are going to be running.
Yeah, we are. So it's part of the evidence stream. So creating and assessing the evidence associated with how to evaluate non-traditionally submitted outputs. We're doing a series of what we call think aloud review exercises to get people to really, really break down the decision making that they take in place when they're actually evaluating real outputs. And we will be using that to formulate the rules for the next Hidden Ref Festival to be trialed to see how they go towards creating some really broad or socialized examples of how to assess non-traditionally submitted outputs in a way of creating and contributing to the research sector. So, we've been doing a rapid review of the evidence, and yes, there is some evidence, but it has evidence in different forms. So it's not necessarily the evidence that we can, take to a policymaker and say, look, this is how it's done. So we're taking it upon ourselves, the big task of looking for the evidence, creating the evidence, running the experiment for the evidence. And the Hidden Ref Festival and the Hidden Ref competition next year are a very important part of contributing to that goal. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I think one thing that's quite exciting as well about the festival is that people have sort of self-organized to some extent around certain disciplinary areas to come along. So yes, there are a lot of people coming along who are kind of research managers working centrally at universities, but we do have sort of groups of people who work in disciplinary spaces who've decided they want to come along, they want to think about certain types of output, they want to think about how they can work together to develop metrics. And maybe, we don't know, but maybe there'll be some subgroups emerging from this at the next kind of year or so who will kind of take that work forward, which would be pretty great. And is always part of the point of Hidden Ref is that it's been ground up, bottom up from people who are doing this kind of work. So it's really exciting to see those kind of individuals coming along, because we were at a research culture-y kind of conference and assessment conference last week, of course, but it's nice to see people who kind of do kind of coming to events like this as well, which I think is really important for us to maintain.
I'm super excited about these expert groups and what we can tap into and how we can change things by just getting hold of their expertise and then getting it down in a form that we can use with all these many ref panelists we now have to inform, and then just in informing the ref managers at the same time. And the idea of being able to feed that into the next Hidden Ref competition. So it's the Hidden Ref competition was always more about putting a spotlight on people who were being overlooked, but now it's going to become more of a testing ground for actually, well, can we do NTO assessment? Can we sort of do that in a way that could be picked up easily by the ref? So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a hotbed of ref rumors, a hotbed of experimentation on traditionally output. But the other thing is that, you said the Hidden Ref is sold out, and we're getting, emails and inquiries from people desperate for a ticket. And these are people who are very much committed to the research culture agenda. And so I think in the midst of this pause, it's going to be a very, very influential, and let's hope it's a very loud and influential group of people who can promote the importance of encouraging good research culture practice within institutions. Because I think we all know that without that kind of push, institutions won't do it because they haven't done it in the past. So why are they going to do it now? And that's why we really need to, ensure the survival of the PCE criterion and the research culture agenda for REF 2029. So
let's see what happens.
So yeah, festival 7th, 8th of October. It is sold out, like I said, for the main festival, but we have had people cancelling here and there because they're free tickets. You know how it goes. So if you really want to come and you haven't got a ticket yet, please join the wait list. You may find yourself lucky to pick one up. So go to the Hidden Ref website to find a link to that.
Well, thank you, Gemma and James, for that interesting and rather speculative podcast. Just want to wrap up by saying a few things. So obviously, James talked about the festival. Keep an eye out for tickets. There should be some kind of way of joining on that second day, so keep an eye out on the website for that as well. If you'd like to hear more about what's going on with What the Ref, then look for us on YouTube and wherever you pick up your podcasts. If you've got anything you'd like to add or things you'd like us to discuss, possibly you've got more speculation on what the hell's going on during this 3-month pause, then you can get in touch with us, and the address is wtref@hidden-ref.org. And with that, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.